Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Usagi Podjimbo podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and this is a podcast all about the Usagi Yojimbo series and my personal journey through it as we go through issue by issue, talking about each story. We got a good one for you guys today, but if you're new, thanks for listening, or returning listener, thanks for listening as well. The best way to help is to share the podcast. Tell your friends. Rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It helps us grow. Just saying, it helps us grow. But we got a good one for you guys today. 2 stories. This is from Usagi Yojimbo, Volume 3, Issue 3. And we're covering 2 stories. We're covering The Wrath of the Tangled Skein. And we're also covering the Bonze story, which goes right in after the Tangled Skein. Like it's like an epilogue almost, I would say, sort of ish, kind of. But yeah, let's get into this. Hope you guys enjoy the episode, and enjoy. So our story starts out with Usagi walking through this. It's like a field or a valley. I'm not really sure. It's some grass, and it's very windy. Almost look like it's out like storm almost. But there's like very windy. Usagi has his sword strung over his back. He's holding it, and I love the little detail of the blades of the grass like blowing, and like Usagi's clothes blowing. I love this little touch that we see. And Usagi's like, "Oh, a town at last." I hope there's a room at the end, when he starts to go, because he's like, I don't want to be stuck out here in the middle of the night, because it looks like it's going to be a bad night, Usagi says. And he's like, oh, good luck, he found an inn. And Usagi walks into the inn, and he asks the person, hey, I hope you have some room for us. And he's like, frankly, yeah, I do have some room, but, frankly, there is some trouble around here, and I don't really know if you want to actually stay. And Usagi's like, oh, trouble, what do you mean? And we see this man come down, and he's like, I heard voices. Is the Bonze here? Which is a Buddhist priest. He asks if the Buddhist priest has arrived. And the innkeeper is like, no, Yamada-san. He will be here for another few hours. He'll be here, he says. And he runs away. Yamada runs away. And Usagi's like, what's going on here exactly? And we find out from the innkeeper as he washes Usagi's feet. Yamada-san, or Yamada, works for Kamachi, the merchant. His master's daughter made a pilgrimage to the temple. She suddenly fell ill while on the road, but our doctor could not find anything wrong with her, apparently. And Usagi's like, oh, why call the Bonze, the monk? Why call the monk? And he's like, oh, to perform an exorcism. And he's like, you believe she is actually possessed? Which, if you remember, we've had some spooky, creepy stuff in the Usagi Yojimbo world here and there, which it's interesting to see like this come back up. Because, after this part, apparently, the party who traveled through with Lady Kamachi, they went through like this pass, in this forest called the Tangled Skein, which is known to haunt for demons, and they foolishly neglected to give an offering for protection as insults to the deities of the forest. So apparently they did not give an offering, and they insulted everybody, so therefore things went bad really fast, apparently. And now apparently Lady Kamachi has taken ill, and they fear that she will be drained by the demons. And the innkeeper's like, oh, I'll show you to your room. And we get this little blurb at the bottom, which says, see Usagi Yojimbo Book 7. Which, so Usagi mentions that he's actually dealt with the Tangled Skein before, and perhaps he can help. Now, I don't remember what this story was referring to. So if anybody knows, please let me know, because I forgot what this was referencing. Maybe it's a story that I just didn't read. Maybe it was an early like short story. Maybe it was in Critters. I don't know, or Albedo. I don't know. But I feel like I was missing something there, to be honest. And so we transition from that to Usagi going up to the rooms, and Yamada says, "Oh, forgive me earlier for the outburst, Usagi-san, but I was concerned about the mistress' health." And Usagi's like, "Think no more about it, Yamada-san. Your dedication is very much commended." Usagi ends up going to check out Kamachi. He's like, her breathing is very shallow. She's cold, as almost if she's dead. And apparently she fell into a stupor last night and has not come out of it. And I fear, apparently, is what Yamada says. I fear tonight it will bring basically death, And Yamada's like, "Can you help, Samurai?" And he's like, Usagi says, "Well, I will do what I can. But first, we had best wait for the priest," Usagi says. And the innkeeper actually comes in with the priest, and the priest is like, "Oh, I'm going to pray for Lady Kamachi here." And he's like, "You're right to call me," the priest says. "The young lady is plagued by demons. She may not last long, apparently. But we must hurry if she's... we're going to save her, The night is falling, and it's time for evils. Greatest power, apparently, only comes about at night. The freaks come out at night, apparently." And the priest is like, "Oh, you must leave me." And so Usagi and Yamada basically go off. And Usagi kind of looks back, and he's kind of like, what's going on here, And Usagi says, I'm going to investigate the grounds outside. And apparently they hired 6 Ronin to help escort the lady through this pilgrimage. And Usagi's like, "I'm going to go basically talk to these Ronin." And he asked the innkeeper to summon all these Ronin that were hired. And I have to say, I love this next scene. We see the men like huddled around a fire. They're like, "Brr, it's cold," And like, who does this Ronin think he is? Ordering us around like he's our lord. Where is he anyways? They're saying. They're grumbling and they're very, very mad about this. They're like, "We should be inside drinking, not freezing our butts off." And they're like, "Oh, don't worry, I brought some drink. I got enough for everybody." We see this one guy take this big old swig, and when he's taking a swig, we see it break. It shatters. Their jug shatters. And Usagi's like, "You hired your sword to protect Miss Kamachi, not to get drunk." Usagi definitely knows what he's talking about. He's a good Ronin. And we see like the main kind of head Ronin who is drinking, I guess you could say. I'm going to call him the head Ronin. Head samurai, I guess you could say. He's like, "Bah, whatever happens to them was brought on by themselves." And Usagi's like, "What exactly are you talking about?" And apparently these Ronin, or these samurai, they warned the travelers about traveling through the haunted forest. But sadly, old Yamada did not listen, and he was more concerned about, adding 2 more days to travel and actually having to pay the samurai more money. But he wanted to cheap out and go through this forest just to save 2 days without paying the samurai. I love this scene right here where they're kind of talking about like what exactly happened. And they're like, "Yeah, so now he's too cheap to pay us what we actually deserve. He's to blame for everything," is what they say. And Usagi's like, "You call yourself samurai? Once you agree to serve a master, you are duty bound even to die for him." And they're like, "Big talk. You're a Ronin yourself. Who are you to tell us what to do?" Which they're not wrong, because technically a Ronin is below a samurai in the hierarchy of like the structure of like Japan, from what I remember exactly. I could be wrong. I don't know. But Usagi gives them this very stern look, and they all take a big gulp. And they're like, the innkeeper said that you had traveled through the Tangled Skein yourself. And Usagi's like, yeah, it was a long time ago. He ended up following the forest trail and finding some stuff in there. It was very much almost like a maze, he said, but he ended up getting out of it. And he tells the men to go patrol the grounds, keep alert for anything out of the ordinary. And they're like, oh, he can't order us around. You tell him. One of them's like, you tell him that, not me. I'm not saying that. Did you see his eyes? He had a crazy look in his eyes. And they're kind of like, oh, do you think the Bonze will curse the lady? And like, he better, or we won't get paid, or cure the lady. Sorry, not curse the lady, cure the lady. And they're like, yeah, they better, because we need to get paid, is what they said. And I love this scene. I love how Stan Sakai plays with the really dark backgrounds, where the Ronin, or the samurai are like, they're like all huddled around this fire, and they're all complaining that it's getting colder, getting darker. And we find out from one of the samurai that this is apparently called the, I'm just gonna butcher that name, so I'm not gonna call it that. It's the moon clouded night. And on nights like this, the Abaki haunt apparently the night. I guess Ambake are like demons. And the one guy, he's like a bigger guy. He starts talking about this and whatnot. And the other guys are like, oh, are you trying to just scare us? Are you actually joking around? And he's like, no, I'm not joking around. I'm not joking around at all. And Usagi walks up, and I love this scene because it's actually kind of funny. Usagi walks up, and he's like, have you noticed anything unusual? And he's like, notice anything unusual? I can't even see the hand I have in front of my face. What do you think? I can't see anything, is what he says. And he's like, yeah, he's like, don't look with your eyes, look or listen with your ears, use your other senses and whatnot. And we continue, which this scene makes me laugh, where the one samurai is like, easy for you to say, you don't have, we don't have ears as big as you do. And he's like, Usagi says, shush, be quiet, give me the bow. And he's like, what do you mean give you the bow? You can't say anything, you're just as blind as us. And they hear them snort, and they're like, there's nothing there, Ronin, give up. And we see these eyes glowing in the darkness. And Usagi takes the bow and shoots an arrow, and he fires and actually hits this gruesome, crazy-looking creature. It's like a half tiger, half snake, half monkey thing, and it goes crazy, attacking the samurai. Usagi gets another couple shots in, and he's like, bowman, give me another arrow. The bowman just basically darts and leaves Usagi to fend for himself. He's like, that coward. And he takes the fire that these samurai have been huddled around, and he actually throws it at the monster itself, burning it in the face. And we see that, like, some of the men are still there trying to help. One has like a spear. One of them is like clutching his chest. So either he's having a panic attack or he's having a heart attack. I don't know. Then one unfortunate soul, he actually gets bitten by the snake tail. Very gruesome scene to see, This beast is just wrecking shop on these samurai. They have no chance, no shot. And a lot of them end up dying, unfortunately. Usagi draws his sword, telling them to get back. And I love this scene where he goes to fight the monster, which the monster is still on fire at this point. He jumps up in the air, slicing down on the monster, killing it. And the other samurai are like, oh, what is that? It's horrible. Is it dead? And Usagi's like, they call it a noon. And yes, it is dead. And I love the scene. It's a little funny detail where one of them has like a spear, and he picks up the snake head with like a spear, and like the little snake has like a little death head skull, a bubble in it, which is really funny to see. And yet the monkey tiger part doesn't. But Usagi ended up actually cutting off the head of the Noon. And the samurai are like, yeah, we did it. We killed the beast. Huzzah! And Usagi's like, you fools. How can you rejoice when 3 of your comrades died? And they're like, yeah, he's right. But, well, we'll be famous because we slayed such a creature. And we'll no doubt receive a reward for protecting the merchant's daughter. And they're like, yeah, we did it. You did it. You know, and Usagi walks away because he cannot deal with these 3 at this moment. He just calls them an idiot and like just walks away. But I love this scene, like the whole like juxtaposition between them versus how Usagi handles the situation. It just made me laugh really hard, and I thought it was really funny. And so after that entertaining huzzah, Usagi is like, you know, I better go check on the girl. And we hear someone say, samurai, you know, the monk has just arrived. He said he's all set up by the temple, but I don't understand about the other priest. And we see the priest. He's outside, the priest that just showed up. And he's like, the other? He's like, what a fool I've been, Usagi says. And he darts off, runs up the stairs, and he's like, beware Yamada, the Bonze is and Yamada is dead. Yamada is dead, laying over the lady. Sadly, he gave his life to protect Lady Kamachi. And Usagi is like, the reflection reveals the form of the supernatural. And Usagi takes the blade of his sword and shines it in the monster's face. And he's like, oh, you wish to see my true form? Then look at me, samurai. And we see this guy shape-shift and change. And he's actually a tanuki is what he is. Which, I've never seen a tanuki look like this. I've only seen the tanuki from, like, My Neighbors, the Yamadas, is it? The one where the Hayao Miyazaki movie, the Ghibli movie, where they're, like, tanuki people? And this doesn't look like the tanukis that I've seen, but we'll go with it. You know, this one, he almost kind of looks like a bear, almost, I would say. Like a grizzly bear. And so he, like, spits this, like, goo at Usagi, blinding Usagi with the glomp. And he's like, oh, I'm going to gnaw off your head. And Usagi's down trying to get this ooze off his face. And the tanuki guy, he actually goes to die, like, jump for Usagi. Usagi puts his sword up, cutting the tanuki's throat. And the tanuki actually falls on him, and Usagi ends up blacking out. Now, I'm very curious with this part of the story, so my text is a little, like, faded on part of this, where we see Lady Kamachi, and it's like, Usagi-san, samurai, and then, like, the text ends up going into, like, readable text. I was very curious if that's with every story, everybody's printing of this, or is it like aesthetic? Like, did Stan Sakai do that on purpose? Let me know if you know, because if so, that's a very interesting little touch of detail that Stan Sakai put in there. But Lady Kamachi, she's like, come quick, you know, he's waking up, you know. And Usagi's like, oh, what's going on, you know? And he's like, silly, it's me, Akiko Kamachi. And he's like, they told me you saved my life, she says. He's like, oh, you're all right. How long have I been out? Apparently, Usagi has been out 3 days since he killed the tanuki. And apparently, Milady, which is Kamachi, she recovered quickly once the evil was destroyed, and she has been caring for Usagi ever since, apparently. And that's a good thing for her to do, I should say. Very good thing. And apparently, Kamachi says, under her care, Usagi actually recovered very quickly. And she's like, oh, so tell me all about yourself. Drink some soup. And that's where this issue ends. And so we move into the companion story to this, the Bonze story. And Usagi and the monk Sanshobu are walking through this forest with all these the little Tsukage around and whatnot. I love the little details of how they're hiding in the trees. And Usagi's like, are you certain that Miss Kamachi will be all right? And he's like, yeah, I think she will, Usagi, and whatnot, because, the false priest was taken care of. Everything seems like it's going according to going good, is what Sanshubo says. And Usagi kind of gets a little suspicious. And I was a little suspicious too before I turned the page. But he suspects that Sanshubo was not always a priest himself. And he's like, ha ha ha, what makes you say that, Usagi? And he's like, your stride. That is the stride of a warrior, a samurai. And he starts to bellows and starts laughing. And he's like, you're observant, Usagi. And we come to find out that yes, Sanshubo was actually a samurai for Lord Akita is what his name was, apparently. And Sanshubo was the bannerman for the Lord. I'm not really sure what the bannerman is, but it sounds really interesting. Apparently, he was making the pilgrimage with Lord Akita's son, and along the way on their journey, they were on these mountains, and it was getting really rough, and they were almost to their destination. Then all of a sudden, lightning struck, and it got really, really bad. They were traveling through a treacherous part of the trail. And before they got to their destination, all of a sudden, the Lord's son, Mitsutoshi, he fell off the ledge, and Sanshubo goes to grab for his hand, and he kind of grabs the sleeve of his gi. He's like, grab my hand, and he goes to grab his hand, and his shirt rips, and he falls to his death. And we hear from Sanshubo, it all happened so quickly. We were all stunned that Lord Shigeki had committed his son to his care, and he had failed that trust. The tragedy was great because my son stood safe next to me by my side, is what he said. And Sanshubo says to his son Hirokazu that he actually has Sanshubo has, not his son. Sanshubo has dishonored the confidence of his Lord that his Lord has placed on him. And there is only one way we can purge this disgrace from our family name. And his son, looks at him. And I love this little touch where he's got his hand on his son's shoulder. And his son just, looks at him. And he's like, I understand, Father. And when I turned the page, I was like, oh my God. His son, Sanshubo's son, observes the situation without hesitance. And as a true samurai without hesitance, his heart swelled with pride as he crushed with sorrow, he says. His son basically kills himself for the honor of his family, is what I'm gathering. And he jumps off the cliff. Shinshiro tells his men, Shinshubo tells his men to go on without him. And he stood there for a while, just contemplating things. And eventually, when he returned, he apparently requested his release from his duty from his lord. And then he actually, after that, he then shaved his head, and he since devoted himself to prayer. He's like, such is karma, huh? You know? And Usagi's like, such is karma. And that's where that story ends. And so, like, man, I just have to say, these two stories go well together, I have to say. I really like it when Stan Sakai brings in the supernatural elements to Usagi Yojimbo and stuff like that, the series. I always love that. It's always done very well. He brings in a nice element of like folk tale and myths, you know, and legends when it comes to like the creepy, crawly demon stuff, which is always cool to see. I was a little confused with the whole killing a Skein before, but I don't remember exactly what exactly happened. I loved Usagi's interactions with the other samurai. I thought that was really hilarious, like how they interacted with them and stuff, and how like technically, you know, they were up in the hierarchy than he was. So like, but he was like, nope, I'm taking charge here, which was funny to see. I have to say, very funny. I thought these issues were very well done and very well complemented each other. Or these two stories complement each other quite a bit. It was really interesting to see. I was very shocked by the rawness of the short story and how like somebody would just off themselves for honor of the family. But I mean, hey, that was a thing long ago. Like people wouldn't hesitate to do that, I guess. But it shocked me. From what little we got of Senshubo in this, I actually did like his character a lot, and I really hope that we see him again going forward. It was an interesting concept to see like a former samurai give up his blade and become a monk. You know, very interesting thing to see, I have to say, and the way he interacted with Usagi, I feel like they have like a little bond or connection now, and I hope we get to see him again. I loved how like Stan Sakai played with not colors, but like shading and stuff and cross hatching in this episode. It was really well done. Like it very much set the atmosphere, I feel like, in these issues. I thought it was cool how like the demon kind of tried to play tricks on Usagi and the people and like take a different form and whatnot, which that was crazy and very unexpected. I had to see, you know, that took me off guard quite a bit. Very much a very tense two stories, I would say, very tense. But good to see somewhat. We got sort of a happy story in the first story, but I feel like the second story was kind of like a glass half full type of thing, maybe. I don't know. Hard to say. That one was hard to really judge, but it did hit me in the feels, and it shocked me to my core, I would say. But yeah, these were two good stories, and we're going to be continuing on with issue 4 of volume 3. When we get into that next time. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Stay safe and go read some Usagi Yojimbo.